Welcome to Tamizh Suvai, Ms. Anu Natarajan. My name is Sudha, RJ Sudha, and I'm the host of the radio show Tamizh Suvai on Radio Mirchi 1310.
Namaskaram, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure is ours. Anu, I know you have an academic background in architecture and several City of Fremont roles. You have now expanded your horizon to more of a global citizen, I should say. And you've been a very, very extremely proactive environmentalist. Why and when did you decide to take on this global stage? What was a compelling reason? Where was the calling coming from?
I don't see this as taking on the global stage. I think it's a global issue that each one of us needs to deal with at a local level.
Sure.
And everything that I've done, either architecture, city planning, policy making on the city council, and now my work with Stop Waste, shows me more and more how all of these things and all of our actions are interconnected.
Sure.
We work in a siloed world where we view what we do in a singular way, but if you really step back and take a look at it, everything we do has an environmental focus. Every step we take, every action we make has an impact on the earth and the climate crisis that we all talk about. So in that sense, I think anything that any of us do has an impact on this global issue and on protecting the earth that we all inhabit.
Actually, very, very well said. Actually, it was simple things like plugging our computers overnight. Even if you're not using it, it draws power and it impacts the environment. Plugging in the toaster or throwing the garbage in the wrong garbage can, it has an impact to the environment in small ways that I'm talking about. But if you have a role in the global stage, when you can have a say, you can have a voice, and that there's nothing beats that. And I'm sure you enjoy whatever you're doing. And I know there is so much talk about global warming all around us and how imminent it is. What, according to you, can individuals like you and me do to reduce it in our everyday lives?
I think there's so much talk of gloom and doom. You have the new UN report which says this crisis will come to a head in 12 years, and that's all the time we have to take care of this crisis. We have the Green New Deal that's being talked about and major solutions, and yet we have some people that don't even believe in the science of climate change.
Exactly.
And so while we need big actions, bold goals like we had in the Paris Summit, ultimately how we get there is, as you and I talked about briefly, is through individual action.
Yes.
What each of us does, using just what we need, not wasting stuff, using just the amount of energy we need, the materials we need, looking at materials as a resource that can be used over and over again instead of using it once and throwing it away.
Right.
And it's just these little actions, even with food waste, is the amount of food waste that is in the U.S. can feed 40% of our population.
Wow.
Yet 1 in 6 kids in California is food deprived.
Oh, goodness.
And so this disconnect in this land of abundance in how we use our resources so inefficiently, and that adds to the waste and the production of carbon dioxide, and even more toxic is the methane production from food and organic waste. And so I think more than thinking about it in this global context, I'm inspired by what kids in schools are doing these days. They're learning how to recycle the right way. They're learning about food share tables and making sure that food gets used and utilized instead of being wasted and thrown away.
Right.
So these are simple steps that you can take. Take a look at your own environmental footprint, your carbon footprint, and make the kinds of decisions that you need to make. And again, this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Again, this is not about telling people you cannot eat meat. It's showing people the impact of the different actions and saying, you be your own steward in choosing what you want to do, the lifestyle that you want to live, and yet be mindful of the impact that you have on this earth.
That's true. That's true. It gets back to how our ancestors, how our grandparents lived a very minimalistic life. I think we need to redo that. Just buy exactly how much you want for the week. Don't buy too much of vegetables or fruits, and then learn to live with that and learn to survive with that without splurging and without wasting it out. Yeah, that makes sense. And as you say, the kids these days are much more aware than what we did as kids, about being aware of how much of carbon dioxide wastage, how much of environmental wastage we used to do, and now they are very conscious of it. The schools have been very educational in conveying that to the kids in many possible ways. I know as individuals, as schools, we talked about how we can reduce. And what about businesses? There are several businesses. Even recently I came across, I was at some event. I did not see any separate storage. Separate trash for plastics. They were separate for garbage and stuff like that. The businesses are still, having one receiver for all kinds of trash. Is there anything else that the businesses can do in terms of reducing wastage and reducing the environment pollution?
There's three things that we can talk about in the as far as the business communities are concerned. One is, like you said, what they do internally is to have separate bins for recycling, for organics, for composting, and for landfill, and to make sure that you use less and less packaging and less plastics as you look at what you're doing either in your cafeteria or the products that you produce. Two, many businesses are looking at the sustainable angle to green the materials that they make, to transport the materials in a more environmental fashion. And that's because of the demand of customers. And so as long as we are aware of what we want and spend our money on the most environmental products, businesses will come around to that line of thinking and make products that are more environmentally friendly. Because for their bottom line is to market their products and be the most productive.
Sure.
So you've got big companies like Coca-Cola now making commitments, saying that they will reduce their environmental footprint, make their products 100% recyclable in the next few years. And so the demand needs to come from consumers, and then things will change.
Right.
And the third thing is what we call shifting from a linear economy to a circular economy. The linear economy is where you take, make, use, and dispose after a single use any product, right? And so that's the linear fashion. But in a circular economy, you take, make, use, reuse, repair, reuse, remanufacture.
Got it.
Putting the materials in circulation at the highest value. So you're really treating materials as having value beyond just that one use.
Okay.
And so the businesses that take this into account are creating an environment, designing their products in such a way that they don't have to keep using virgin raw materials for their products, but they've created the cycle, created this design where the existing current products can be reused in more efficient ways.
The next generation of product, yeah, makes sense, right.
So shifting to a circular economy is something that we absolutely need the business community and the business world to be in partnership with the environmental community. It cannot be done without them.
Absolutely.
So pulling them into these conversations early, having them have the producer responsibility for the products that they make and the way they make it and reuse it is something that we can demand of the business community and partner with them to get us all there.
Got it. Okay. Good to know that. And also, Anu, you have been a strong proponent of the Stop Waste program. Will you be able to educate our listeners on what it is and if they can apply it to their everyday lives? I mean, we're not talking about the big industries, but everyday lives. How can we reduce waste or officially embrace a Stop Waste program?
So Stop Waste is basically a program that, like you said, talks about these issues of reducing waste in bite-sized efforts in three environments: at home, at work, and in school.
Okay.
So we basically work with communities, we work with businesses, and we work with a lot of different schools to first start with the waste hierarchy and what that means. So the waste hierarchy is to refuse first. Don't unnecessarily get things either because they're cheap or free. You don't need them.
Yeah, makes sense.
Reduce the amount of things that you want and use and need. Reuse products that you already have and make sure that you're not disposing of things after a single use. For example, taking your own water bottle, your coffee cup.
Right.
Not asking for straws. These are small things that add up to a lot. Then recycle. Making sure, and we'll talk about recycling, I'm sure, a little bit more, but there's just so much confusion about how to recycle, what you recycle. And there's this term called aspirational recycle. People just throw anything that's plastic or metal into the recycling bin and assume that they've done good. But the environment now where China is refusing to take out recycled products.
Yes.
India recently adopted a ban on recycling materials sent to them. So the U.S. and other countries are having to grapple with how we deal with the scrap and the recycled materials.
So that makes it so they will force the recycling process, they enforce the recycling process more strictly because there is no recipient to take it, like because China and India have said, no, we can't take it anymore. That's good. Okay.
And then the whole notion of contamination.
Right.
Even if there's one little bit of contamination in the recycling, for example, if you have a plastic box with even a speck of food on it, the whole entire load gets discarded because it's contaminated.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually not being recycled, it's being sent to landfill.
Oh, goodness, okay.
And so when you recycle, you want to make sure that you check in to see what your haulers in each particular city will take or will not take. Some of them have you put these the plastic in the milk cartons in recycling. Some of them want you to put them in composting. Some of them don't do either. And so everybody needs to check to see what goes where, and this is different in each city depending on the waste management options that the cities have. The Stop Waste has an app called Recycle Where, and if you plug in the city that you live in and the material that you want to find out whether it goes into recycling or composting or the garbage bin, that'll give you the solutions and talk about what you should do with that.
Oh, I didn't know that. So each city has that, or is it county level or the city level?
So Recycle Web is for the counties, but it also specifically tells you what each city should do.
Oh, I see. Okay. I did not know that. Okay, great. Okay, and we're talking so much about, there is so much talk about plastic pollution, and in fact last year the entire world got together to get rid of, or at least minimize the use of plastic straws, and of course at the bigger level plastic has been the root cause or one of the bigger causes of the world level pollution, maybe at the sea animals level or general environment, or even for the humans ourselves. How do different countries handle this? Like, I know you covered it as part of a previous question, but as far as California, how do different counties handle this, and what are the common mistakes people like you and me do it? We think, I believe that I'm doing the right thing. Let's say I'm getting rid of a yogurt box, I'm cleaning it up, running it through a dishwasher cycle, and eventually putting it in the plastic thing. But I may not be, even though my intentions are good and pure, I may not be doing the right thing. What do you think are the common mistakes people do while they think they're doing the best for the environment?
So that's all a little bit confusing.
Okay.
Again, because the country's trying to figure out what to recycle, what not to recycle.
Okay.
What the infrastructure is to handle all of this, given the post-China. So you'll hear a lot of conflicting information, at least for the near future, in terms of what you should do. So the point is, though, the larger context, recycling is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Of all all the things that we send, and California has been a leader in recycling all these years with plastic, only 9% of plastics get recycled.
Really?
Yes. And so it's still a huge issue. So how do you attack this big problem? One is to reduce the amount of plastics that we use and to use options and alternatives. And again, that's not as easily available at this point, but there's lots of research being done to replace plastic and provide people with options. Two, at the state level, this year there's a bill called the Plastic Pollution Prevention Bill. And that seeks to mirror what's happening in the EU, the huge plastic ban in India and other places that have looked holistically at attacking the plastic problem.
Yes.
And so this will seek to reduce and reduce 75% or more of the plastics by 2030 in California.
Very nice. Okay, that's still a long way to go, but at least there is some forward-looking actions that I'm sure.
It's a broad goal because it deals. I mean, when you take a look at the impact plastics and packaging have in our lives, it is huge. And so, having a goal that large, I think, to get us there and finding a path to get us there more quickly is the way to go. We can take measures individually, and businesses can voluntarily do things differently. I mean, even looking at things as products or service. Philips is taking a different look at lighting. Instead of selling bulbs, which at the end of the life we have to throw away in landfill, they're looking at lighting as a service. So they will provide you with the lumens that you need. They are responsible for producing, installing, and maintaining the light fixtures.
Okay.
So at the end of its life cycle, they'll take it back and replace it with new lighting fixtures. So you as a consumer, you as a business, are not responsible for the end of the life of the product.
Okay.
So it goes back to what we talked about initially as circular economy.
Okay.
And then there's the shared economy, right? I mean, we know things like Uber, co-housing. All of these are aimed at making sure that we use an object, use products more efficiently. Instead of having a car sit in a parking lot for 23 hours, how do you make it be used more efficiently? So you're sharing resources and making it more efficient to use that. So I know this is a long-winded answer to your question in terms of what each of us can do, but there's just so many choices we have. Again, driving less. Even if you took mass transit or work from home one day of the week or biked to work, reduce the number of miles that you travel. That has an impact, a positive impact on the environment.
Sure. Very good. Why do you think Western countries, especially the US, is hesitant to embrace certain actions against global warming, while even small countries like Iceland or Finland have embraced it in many have embraced it in many ways. In fact, there are some small states in India that have also embraced complete green farming and taken steps towards global warming. Why do you think US is very hesitant to do anything like that?
It's because at the federal level there is reluctance of believing climate change is actually real. We have a president who's pulled out of the Paris Global Summit when every other nation has signed on to it.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's. I mean, I don't believe any of us can explain what this dichotomy is, because it's most efficient if things like this are dealt with at a federal level instead of each of the states having to deal with it.
Right.
But the good news is I think a lot of the cities have taken this on, look at climate action planning, look at what cities can do to reduce the carbon footprint, to reduce the environmental impact, and really have a positive impact on climate. And so that's where things are happening at the local level in cities throughout the U.S. But it's not. It's going to take much longer because you've got some cities that are far ahead of other cities in doing this. Unlike the EU solution or the India solution, where it's much broader in scope and easier to implement.
Yeah. And I know I looked into your Facebook page, and you had shared some information on sprawl development. Could you tell us, or could you enlighten our listeners on what is sprawl development exactly, and why is it not a good idea to go after it?
So a sprawl is the opposite of what we call sustainable development.
Okay.
And what sustainable development is defined as is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So let's take the Bay Area.
Okay.
Our housing and the way it's built, single-family housing on lots, which is the American dream for a long time, uses land very, very inefficiently. And I'm not saying for a minute that we should take that away from providing that as a choice to people, but if you look at other countries, if you look at Europe, if you look at how they build their housing, you've got the small single-family housing.
Okay.
You've got the multi-family housing where you could put a lot more people in taller buildings and provide more open space and more amenities around.
Vertical development, you mean. Okay.
Vertical development. And putting different uses close to each other. So putting jobs near housing, putting amenities in schools near housing. So you don't have to get in your car and drive alone for miles and miles and miles, causing gridlock, increasing the CO2 emissions, increasing the vehicle miles traveled, all of which have a negative impact both on the environment and you as an individual having far less time with your family and in your community and spending it on roads being completely stressed out.
Sure.
So sprawl development basically is separating uses and putting them far apart from each other. So the only way you connect them is by getting into single occupancy vehicles and driving from one place to another.
Okay.
In our own lives, when we live in the suburban communities, how many trips a day do we take? One to go to work, drop the kids off and pick them up, to the grocery stores, to classes, and to the sports events that you go to. So from 12 to 15 to 20 trips a day, if these were closer, if schools were close enough where kids can bike or walk to school, if your work was where you could take public transit or you could just bike to work instead of traveling 20 miles and stuck in traffic for 2 hours each way. So that's what sprawl is. It's the opposite of smart growth, the opposite of sustainable development.
Okay, so you're encouraging the smart growth and sustainability. Got it. Okay, great. What are I know you're a very active person in the Bay Area, and I know you are taking on the global stage. Although you say that you have been on the global stage, and all of us have been participating in the environmental stage for a while in a small way or a big way. What are the other community-oriented projects that you have been engaging yourselves with?
So one of the big issues that we're just beginning to get an understanding of its impact is food waste.
Food waste, okay.
And so in Alameda County, or anywhere, but in the Bay Area, we have a lot of food wastage. When you go to corporate events or you go to any kind of a gala, the amount of food that's wasted at the end of the day is huge.
Sure.
And if we can find safe and effective ways to give that food to people in the need, I think we solve two problems. One of hunger and food insufficiency, and two of not wasting the food and sending it to landfill. So the infrastructure right now is through nonprofits that really believe and care about this issue. So in Fremont, in Alameda County, I serve on the board of an organization called Daily Bowl.
Okay.
which does two things. I mean, it's a small group of volunteers that have started to connect with grocery stores, with farmers markets, and pick up food that would have been thrown away, and rescue that food and take it to food banks and to shelters and places like that. So they're really finding where the extra supply is, finding where the need is, and connecting the two.
Excellent.
This group, again, it's a small group of volunteers headed by Patty Iyer, who goes to farmers market every weekend.
Okay.
Who goes to Costco.
Okay.
Where returned food, even if it's a bag of unopened rice or lentils or quinoa, cannot be restocked. So they would throw away pounds and pounds of food. He rescues those and takes them to food banks and shelters, and has been able to, within a really short span of time, not only talk about the need and demand, but is getting to a place where they can't handle the requests that they're getting. So I think there's a huge need for this infrastructure to connect and make sure that the food doesn't get wasted.
Excellent. It's almost mimicking the circular economy that you spoke about. It's almost like a circular food chain, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Very nice. It almost may not form a complete circle, but at least there is a consumer for everybody who rejects a certain type of food or which is going, it's almost going to a waste. That's wonderful to know. Is there a way that my Tamizh Suvai listeners can help contribute to this particular organization?
It's dailybowls.org.
Okay.
So if you go take a look at it, I'm sure they can use a ton more volunteers.
Sure, okay.
And of course, fundraising to again, get the infrastructure and get the vans, the refrigerator units. So anything that you can do to help that organization is awesome.
Great.
The other website that I just want to tell the listeners about is Stop Waste Where I Work has another website called stopfoodwaste.org.
Okay.
Which gives you tips about how to preserve food. What you keep in the refrigerator, what you keep outside, many mistakes that we all make. For instance, I did not know that you shouldn't keep potatoes and onions together.
Yes.
I did not know that.
I knew, but just by chance, I believe the potatoes can start sprouting, so that's having a sprouts and the potatoes can be dangerous for your health. Is that right?
Yes, and then you throw those away.
Yes.
It's simple things like keeping basil outside and not in the fridge. And there's just a whole lot of tips about how we prolong food so we don't waste the produce that we get.
Yeah. So what's the website for that again, Anu?
Yeah.
What's the website for that, about the food preservation tips?
Stopfoodwaste.org.
Okay. I'll share that with my listeners. Okay.
And then at the end of the day is also about how you compost leftover foods that has gone bad and put it back into the cycle of producing food. Again, like you said, going back to that whole notion of being circular.
Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you for all the time. Thank you for all the tips, and wish you good luck with everything you do. And please do involve us, engage us in anything that you think is very meaningful, and we can actually put in a bunch of volunteers to help with you.
That would be great. And again, if you need any information, if you want a conversation around any of these topics in more detail, or if any of the community groups want us to come and talk to them, we're happy to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. April 22nd happens to be the World Earth Day, so I wanted to make sure that I have your representation, your voice to be heard with our listeners. That was the reason, but I definitely want to engage with you on a more longer term, on a very specific topic, so our listeners will be enlightened.
And I just want to, because of Earth Day, talk about this one Native American proverb, which I think really gets to the heart of what we are talking about.
Okay.
It says, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, borrow it from our children."
Okay.
And to me, that basically says we are here on this earth to make sure we live in harmony with the earth, use just what we need and not more than that, and make sure that we hand it over to the next generation in a way that it's thriving and sustainable.
Excellent. Very well said. Thank you, Anu, for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good day and have a good spring break and புத்தாண்டு நல்வாழ்த்துக்கள் to you.
உங்களுக்கும் புத்தாண்டு நல்வாழ்த்துக்கள்.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.